In 1584, a 17-year-old samurai woke up to discover that half his face was rotting. Date Masamune had contracted smallpox. The disease ravaged his body for weeks. He survived, but the infection destroyed his right eye completely. In an era where physical perfection was expected of warriors, he was now disfigured and half-blind. His advisors told him to retire from military life. His family suggested he take an administrative position where his appearance wouldn't matter. His enemies openly mocked him, calling him Dokuganryu, the one-eyed dragon, as an insult. He was 17 years old, disfigured, facing a lifetime of shame in a culture that valued physical perfection above almost everything else. In that moment, Date Masamune understood something that would define the rest of his extraordinary life. Nobody was coming to save him. Not his family. They pitied him, but couldn't fix his face. Not his advisors. They wanted him to hide. Not society. They had already judged him as less than a complete warrior. If he was going to have the life he wanted, he would have to create it himself, with one eye, against a society that saw him as defective. So Date Masamune did something radical. Instead of hiding his disfigurement, he embraced it. He wore armor decorated with a crescent moon. He became known for his distinctive appearance instead of trying to minimize it. He adopted the insult "one-eyed dragon" as his official nickname. And then he went to war. By age 24, he had conquered most of northern Japan. By 30, he controlled vast territories and commanded armies of tens of thousands. By the time he died at 70, he was one of the most respected and feared daimyo in all of Japan. Foreign visitors to his court wrote that his one eye saw more than most men's two. The young man everyone had written off as damaged became a legend. But here's what matters for you. Date Masamune didn't succeed because someone helped him overcome his disability. He succeeded because he accepted that nobody was going to help him, and that acceptance freed him to help himself. The samurai had a principle for this. They called it jishu, self-support, or self-reliance. The understanding that you alone are responsible for your survival, your success, and your life. Nobody is coming to save you, not your parents, not your boss, not your friends, not luck, not the universe. And that's not a depressing truth. That's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. This video will show you exactly how Date Masamune and other samurai transformed the brutal reality that nobody is coming into a source of unstoppable power. If you're ready to stop waiting and start building, let's begin. The rescue fantasy, why waiting destroys you. Let me show you the poison that's keeping you weak, and why it feels so comfortable you don't even recognize it as poison. In 1600, a samurai named Ishida Mitsunari was facing political destruction. He had enemies at every level of government. More powerful warlords wanted him removed. His position was collapsing. Ishida Mitsunari was brilliant, genuinely one of the smartest political minds of his era, but he had one fatal weakness. He believed that if he could just explain his position clearly enough, if he could just make the right arguments, if he could just wait for the right moment, powerful people would recognize his value and come to his aid. He waited for rescue that never came. He held meeting after meeting, trying to convince powerful lords to support him. He wrote eloquent letters explaining why his enemies were wrong. He waited for someone, anyone, with more power than him to step in and fix the situation. Nobody came. In 1600, his enemies moved against him. He raised an army to fight back, but it was too little, too late. He was defeated at the Battle of Sekigahara and executed shortly after. His final words, according to historical records, were, "I waited too long for help that was never coming." This is what psychologists now call learned helplessness, the belief that your situation can only improve through external rescue. And it's everywhere in modern life. You're waiting for your boss to finally notice your hard work and promote you without you having to ask. You're waiting for your relationship to magically improve without having difficult conversations or making hard changes. You're waiting for the economy to get better, for the right time to appear, for circumstances to align, for someone to give you permission. You're waiting for rescue. And just like Ishida Mitsunari, you're wasting the only time you'll ever have. Here's the brutal truth. The people you're waiting to rescue you are also waiting to be rescued. Your boss is waiting for you to step up and prove you can handle more responsibility before giving you a promotion. You're waiting for each other. Your partner is waiting for you to change, just as much as you're waiting for them to change. You're both waiting. That perfect opportunity you're waiting for doesn't exist. There's no cosmic alignment where everything becomes easy. While you're waiting, someone else, someone who understands what Date Masamun understood, is taking action with the resources they have right now and winning. Date Masamun didn't wait for someone to invent a glass eye or plastic surgery. He didn't wait for society's attitudes about disability to change. He didn't wait for a miracle. He accepted that he had one eye, and he built his entire strategy around that reality. He positioned himself in battle, so his blind side was always protected. He trained his remaining eye to be supernaturally sharp. He used his distinctive appearance to make himself memorable and intimidating. He turned his disability into his brand, not because he was special, because he accepted that nobody was coming to fix it for him, so he had to fix it himself. The samurai had a saying, "Ten wa mizukara tasukuru mono wo tasuku." Heaven helps those who help themselves, not heaven helps those who wait patiently. Not heaven helps those who pray hard enough. Heaven helps those who help themselves, because heaven, fate, luck, the universe, whatever you want to call it, responds to action, not to waiting. Jishu, the power of complete self-reliance. In 1589, Date Masamun faced an impossible military situation. His uncle had Takayama Yoshitsugu betrayed him and joined forces with a rival clan. They had him surrounded in his own castle, with a force 3 times larger than his garrison. Every military advisor Date Masamun consulted gave him the same recommendation. Send messengers to your allies. Request reinforcements. Negotiate for time until help arrives. Date Masamun listened to all of them. Then he said, "And what if help doesn't arrive? What if our allies are too far away or unwilling to risk their armies? What if we wait and reinforcements never come?" Nobody had an answer. So Date Masamun said, "We will assume help is not coming. We will plan our strategy as if we are completely alone. And if help does arrive, it will be a bonus, not a necessity. This is Jishu, complete self-reliance." The Japanese word breaks down. Ji, share self-shu. Support, help, aid, self-help, self-support, self-reliance. Not the absence of help from others, but the refusal to make your success dependent on that help. Date Masamun planned a breakout, a desperate, high-risk nighttime assault on the weakest point of the encirclement. If it worked, his forces would escape. If it failed, they would all die. He didn't wait for rescue. He created his own rescue. The assault succeeded. His forces broke through, regrouped, and eventually defeated the larger army through guerrilla tactics over the following months. Years later, when asked how he made such a risky decision, Date Masamun said, "The moment you stop waiting for someone else to save you is the moment you become dangerous, because you're no longer hoping, you're acting." This is the secret powerful people understand, and weak people never learn. Hope is not a strategy. Waiting is not a plan. Rescue fantasies are comfortable lies you tell yourself to avoid taking action. Let me break down what Jishu actually means in practice. 1. You own your problems. Not philosophically. Practically. Date Masamun had a facial disfigurement. That was his problem, not society's. He could spend his life resenting a world that judged him, or he could adapt to that world and conquer it anyway. He chose conquest. Your career problems are yours. Your relationship problems are yours. Your financial problems are yours. Not because you caused them all, not because they're fair, but because you're the only one who will definitely be affected by whether they get solved or not. Nobody else has the same incentive to fix your problems that you have. 2. You control what you can control, mate. Masamune couldn't control that he lost an eye. He could control how he trained his remaining eye. He could control how he positioned himself in battle. He could control his attitude toward his disfigurement. He focused 100% of his energy on what he could control and accepted what he couldn't. You can't control the economy. You can control whether you develop valuable skills. You can't control other people. You can control whether you tolerate relationships that drain you. You can't control your past. You can control your response to it. 3. You make decisions based on resources. You have not resources. You wish you had. Date Masamun didn't wait until he had 2 eyes to become a warrior. He became a warrior with 1 eye. He didn't wait until he had the largest army to go to war. He went to war with the army he had. He didn't wait until circumstances were perfect. He made circumstances work. You don't need more time. You need to use the time you have. You don't need more money. You need to use the money you have strategically. You don't need different circumstances. You need to act within your current circumstances. This is Jishu. Not waiting, acting. The moment Date Masamun stopped waiting for a miracle cure for his eye was the moment he became one of the most powerful men in Japan. The moment you stop waiting for circumstances to improve is the moment your life transforms. The 3 pillars. How samurai practiced self-reliance. So how do you actually develop Jishu? How do you transform from someone who waits for rescue into someone who rescues themselves? The samurai had a 3-pillar method. I'll show you exactly what each pillar means and how to apply it starting today. Pillar 1, take complete inventory. Know what you actually have. In 1591, Date Masamun was ordered by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the most powerful man in Japan at the time, to relocate his entire domain to a different region. This was a political maneuver designed to weaken Date Masamun. Moving meant leaving behind fortifications, supply lines, loyal vassals, everything he'd built. Most daimyo in this situation would focus on what they were losing. Date Masamun did the opposite. He sat down with his advisors and made a complete inventory of what he would still have after the move. 10,000 loyal soldiers who would follow him anywhere. His reputation as a brilliant tactician, relationships with merchants who could help establish new trade routes, his own strategic mind, his family's credibility. He realized that everything that made him powerful was portable. The land didn't make him strong. His decisions made him strong. So he moved without resistance. rebuilt in the new location, and within 5 years was more powerful than he'd been before. This is the first pillar: accurate assessment of your actual resources. Not what you wish you had, not what you used to have, not what you might have someday, what you have right now. Most people do the opposite. They make lists of what they're missing. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right education. I don't have connections. I don't have experience. That's a list of excuses, not an inventory of resources. Here's the practice. Take out a piece of paper right now. Write down, what skills do you currently have? What relationships do you currently have? What time do you currently have available? What money do you currently have? What knowledge do you currently possess? Then write, if help never comes, what can I build with only these resources? That question forces you into Jishu mindset. Date Masamune had one eye and forced relocation. He built one of the most powerful domains in Japan. What's your excuse? Pillar 2. Make one irreversible move. Stop planning, start committing. In 1600, Date Masamune faced a critical political decision. Japan was about to be unified under either Tokugawa Ieyasu or Ashida Mitsunari. Every daimyo had to choose a side. Both sides sent envoys to Date Masamune asking for his support. Both offered him rewards. Both threatened him with consequences if he chose wrong. Date Masamune's advisors were paralyzed. We need more information. We need to see which side looks stronger. We need to wait until the outcome is clearer. Date Masamune said, waiting is also a choice, and it's the worst choice because we gain nothing from it. He chose Tokugawa Ieyasu immediately, sent troops, burned his bridges with the other side. His advisors were terrified. What if you chose wrong? Date Masamune said, then I'll have chosen wrong decisively, and I'll deal with the consequences decisively, but I won't have wasted months in indecision. Tokugawa won. Date Masamune's early decisive support was rewarded with increased territory and status. But here's what matters. Even if Tokugawa had lost, Date Masamune's decisive action would have positioned him better than waiting would have. Because action, even imperfect action, generates information and momentum. Waiting generates nothing. This is the second pillar. One irreversible move. Not a complete plan, not a perfect strategy. One move that commits you and eliminates retreat. The samurai called this danko, resolute action. Here's the practice. Identify the one decision you've been avoiding or overthinking. The one where you keep waiting for more information, more certainty, more perfect timing. Make that decision today. Then take one irreversible action that commits you to that decision. Starting a business? Register the LLC today. File the paperwork. Make it real. Leaving a relationship? Have the conversation today. Don't wait for the right moment. Changing careers? Submit an application. Schedule an interview. Commit. One irreversible move forces you into Jishu because retreat is no longer an option. You must succeed with what you have. Pillar 3. Accept 100% responsibility. No excuses, ever. This is the hardest pillar, and where most people fail. In 1615, Date Masamune fought in the siege of Osaka. His forces were assigned to attack a specific gate. They failed. The attack was repelled with heavy casualties. Afterward, his generals gave him excuses. The intelligence was wrong. We didn't know they had that many troops. The terrain was worse than reported. We weren't given adequate support. All of those excuses were factually true. Date Masamune said, I accept full responsibility for the failure. The intelligence was my responsibility to verify. The terrain was my responsibility to scout. The support was my responsibility to secure before committing troops. I failed. His generals were shocked. But Lord, those failures weren't your fault personally. Date Masamun said something that defines Jishu. Fault is irrelevant. Responsibility is everything. If I can claim credit when my forces succeed, I must accept blame when they fail. Otherwise, I'm not leading. I'm just taking credit for luck. This is radical responsibility. Everything in your life, your career, your relationships, your finances, your health, your happiness, is your responsibility. Not your fault, your responsibility. There's a difference. Fault is about the past and about blame. Responsibility is about the future and about power. You can't change the past. You can only take responsibility for your response to it. Here's the practice. For the next 30 days, eliminate these phrases from your vocabulary. It's not my fault. They should have. If only I would have. But replace them with, I'm responsible for my response. Every time you want to blame circumstances, stop yourself and ask, what can I control about this situation? Date Masamun couldn't control that he lost an eye. He controlled his response. You can't control what happened to you. You control what you do about it. How samurai built unshakable self-reliance. Now let me show you exactly how samurai trained young warriors to rely on themselves, because this goes against every human instinct. Human beings are tribal animals. For 200,000 years, exile from the tribe meant death. Your brain is wired to seek help, to wait for the group, to depend on others. The samurai had to systematically override that wiring. Training. Phase 1. Forced self-sufficiency. In the Date clan, boys starting at age 12 were sent on what they called Tanrin no Tabi, hardship journeys. A young samurai would be given minimal supplies and sent alone into the mountains for a week. No companions, no support, no way to contact anyone. They had to find food, build shelter, navigate terrain, and return safely. Alone. Many failed the first time. That was expected. The failure taught them their limits and their capabilities. Then they tried again and again, until completing the journey alone stopped feeling impossible and started feeling difficult but manageable. Date Masamun himself did this training. After losing his eye, his father made him complete a 2-week solo journey through winter mountains. His father's reasoning: if you can survive alone with one eye in winter mountains, you can survive anything life throws at you. Masamun completed it. That experience built unshakable confidence in his ability to handle difficulty alone. Modern application. You need to practice self-sufficiency in small, controlled ways. Take a trip alone to a place you've never been. No friends, no guided tour. Just you navigating an unfamiliar city. Solve a complex problem at work without asking for help first. Force yourself to figure it out alone. Go a full weekend without asking anyone for advice, validation, or support. Sit with your own thoughts and make your own decisions. These small practices build the neural pathways for self-reliance. Training. Phase 2. Simulated abandonment. The Date clan had another brutal training exercise, Maibun no Shiren, the trial of abandonment. A student would be taken to an unfamiliar location, stripped of identification and money, and told, return to the castle in 3 days. Figure it out. No instructions, no help, just the challenge and your own resourcefulness. Students had to beg, work odd jobs, barter skills, navigate without maps, solve problems on the fly. The point wasn't to teach specific skills. The point was to teach. You can survive anything alone if you have to. Date Masamun institutionalized this training because he'd lived it. When he lost his eye, society abandoned him psychologically. He had to figure out how to rebuild his identity alone. Modern application. Give yourself controlled challenges where normal support systems are unavailable. Start a side project where you can't use your professional network or credentials. Build something from zero. Travel to a country where you don't speak the language and navigate without translation apps for a day. Fast from social media for a month. No posting, no validation, just your own thoughts and judgments. These exercises train you to function without external validation. Training Phase 3, the leadership test. The final phase of Date Clan training was Shuryo no Shiken, the leadership examination. A student would be given command of a small unit, usually 10-20 soldiers, and assigned a mission. The student's superiors would then deliberately give bad advice, conflicting orders, and false information. The test wasn't whether the student could follow orders. The test was whether the student could recognize bad orders and make independent decisions anyway. Many failed by following bad advice from authority figures. Those students were demoted. The ones who succeeded were the ones who listened to advice, then made their own judgment and took responsibility for the outcome. Date Masamune excelled at this test. Historical records show he was promoted to full command at age 18, unusually young because he demonstrated the ability to make independent decisions under pressure. Modern application. You need to practice making decisions contrary to advice from authority figures, not recklessly, but consciously. When your boss gives you advice, evaluate it independently. If you disagree, respectfully do it your way and accept the consequences. When experts tell you something is impossible, research it yourself. Make your own judgment. When conventional wisdom says X, ask yourself, is this actually true, or is this just what everyone believes? This builds independent judgment, the core of Jishu. Why your brain resists self-reliance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your brain actively fights against self-reliance, not because you're weak, because evolution optimized humans for tribal survival, not individual survival. For 200,000 years, humans who waited for the group's approval before acting survived longer than humans who acted alone. Your brain is wired to wait for permission, to seek consensus, to depend on others. Date Masamune had to fight this wiring every day of his life. Obstacle 1. The comfort of blame. When Date Masamune lost his eye to smallpox, he had a choice. He could spend his life blaming the disease, blaming the doctors who couldn't save his eye, blaming a society that judged him for his disfigurement. All of those would have been valid. The situation was genuinely unfair. But blame is comfortable and powerless. Historical records show that Date Masamune went through a period of intense anger after losing his eye. He raged against the injustice. He blamed everyone and everything. Then, according to his own later writings, he had a realization. Blame changes nothing. It feels righteous, but it produces no results. I could spend my life being right about who wronged me, or I could spend my life building power despite who wronged me. He chose power over righteousness. This is the hardest obstacle, giving up the psychological comfort of being a victim. When you're a victim, nothing is your fault. You don't have to act. You get sympathy, but you also get stuck. The moment Date Masamune stopped blaming his circumstances was the moment he started changing them. Obstacle 2. The fear of failure, alone. In 1589, when Date Masamun planned that desperate breakout from encirclement, he faced a terrifying reality. If he failed, he would die. And it would be entirely his decision that killed him. If he waited for rescue and died, at least he could die thinking, "I did the reasonable thing." But if he took bold action and died, he would die knowing, "I made the wrong choice." That fear, the fear of being solely responsible for failure, keeps most people paralyzed. It's why people stay in jobs they hate. If they stay and are miserable, it's not their fault. It's the job's fault. But if they quit and fail, it's their fault. Date Masamun overcame this fear with a simple mental framework. He wrote in his personal records, "I would rather die from my own decision than live as a consequence of someone else's. At least in death, I would still own my choices." That's not recklessness, that's Jishu taken to its logical conclusion. Modern application. You need to practice failing alone. Deliberately take risks where you might fail and where you can't share the blame. Start small. Make a decision at work alone and don't involve others. If it fails, own it completely. Launch a project solo. If it fails, you can't blame a team. Each failure you survive alone builds immunity to the fear of failing alone. Obstacle 3. The addiction to validation. This is the most subtle obstacle. After Date Masamun became famous as the one-eyed dragon and conquered large territories, something interesting happened. He started receiving validation constantly. Other daimyo respected him. The shogun consulted him. History was proving he'd made the right choices. And that validation felt amazing. His brain started craving it. Later in life, Date Masamun wrote about this as a danger. Success makes you dependent on others' approval. You start making decisions to maintain their validation rather than to achieve your goals. He consciously fought against this by making at least one unpopular decision per year, just to practice not caring about consensus. Modern application. The more successful you become through self-reliance, the more you'll be tempted to start seeking validation again. Fight this by regularly making decisions that you know will be unpopular, not recklessly, but consciously. Do things that won't get likes. Make choices your friends don't understand. Pursue goals that don't impress people. This keeps your Jishu strong even after success, the warrior who saved himself. Let me bring this full circle to where we started. That 17-year-old boy who woke up with half his face rotting, Date Masamun, faced a choice that morning. He could wait for someone to fix him, wait for a cure, wait for society to become more accepting, wait for his situation to improve, or he could accept that nobody was coming to save him and start building the life he wanted with the reality he had. He chose the latter. And that choice, that moment of accepting that rescue wasn't coming, transformed him from a disfigured teenager everyone pitied into the one-eyed dragon everyone feared. Here's what you need to understand. Right now, whatever situation you're in, whatever problems you're facing, whatever goals you're pursuing, you are alone. Not because people don't care about you, not because you don't have friends or family, but because ultimately, your life is your responsibility. Nobody can live it for you. Nobody can make your decisions for you. Nobody can do your work for you. You are the only person who can save you, and that's not a tragedy. That's your power. The method is simple. Take complete inventory of what you actually have right now. Make one irreversible move today. Accept 100% responsibility for outcomes. This isn't easy. Date Masamoon spent years building unshakable self-reliance. You won't master it in a week, but you can start today. That problem you're facing? Nobody is coming to solve it for you. What's one move you can make today? That goal you're chasing? The one you've been thinking about for months, maybe years? The one you tell yourself you'll start when the timing is right, when you have more resources, when you feel more ready? Nobody is going to hand it to you. There's no award for good intentions. There's no prize for planning. There's no recognition for thinking about doing something great. What's one action you can take right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now before you close this video, that moves you toward that goal, that person you're waiting to become, the confident version, the disciplined version, the successful version of yourself that you imagine in your mind? Nobody can transform you except you. Not a mentor, not a book, not a course, not a relationship. Those things might help, but they cannot do the work of becoming. Only you can do that. What's one habit you can change today? What's one pattern you can break right now? What's one decision you can make in this moment that the future version of you will thank you for? Because here's the truth that Date Masamoon understood at 17 years old, with half his face destroyed. Waiting for perfect circumstances is just a sophisticated form of giving up. Date Masamoon didn't wait for two eyes. He didn't spend years wishing for what he'd lost or hoping for some medical miracle. He conquered northern Japan with one eye, starting immediately after accepting his new reality. He didn't wait for society's acceptance. He didn't hide until people stopped judging him for his disfigurement. He didn't wait for cultural attitudes about disability to evolve. He forced society to respect him through his actions, through his victories, through becoming so powerful that his appearance became irrelevant compared to his capability. He didn't wait for perfect circumstances. He didn't wait for more troops, more resources, more political support, more advantages. He built power within brutal circumstances with the resources he had, with the reality he faced, starting from the exact position where he found himself, because he understood something at a level deeper than intellectual knowledge. Nobody is coming to save you. And once you truly accept that, not as a depressing fact, but as a liberating truth, you become unstoppable. Not because accepting it makes you stronger, but because accepting it makes you stop wasting energy on waiting and start using all that energy on building. You stop hoping circumstances will improve and start improving within your circumstances. You stop waiting to feel ready and start learning by doing. You stop planning to begin someday and start building today. That shift from waiting to building, that's where real power comes from. If this video changed how you see your own responsibility and power, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments, what have you been waiting for someone else to do for you? What will you do for yourself instead? I read every comment. Your answer might help someone else stop waiting and start building. Remember, the warrior who waits for rescue dies waiting, surrounded by plans that never became actions and dreams that never became reality. The warrior who saves himself conquers everything, not because the path was easy, but because he walked it anyway. Date Masamoon conquered Japan with one eye, while people with two eyes made excuses. What's your excuse? And more importantly, when are you going to stop making it? If you've made it this far, thank you. Now, stop watching and start building. I'll see you in the next one.